2. Hello, guys. Welcome to the show. This show is gonna be awesome. We have a few new friends on here. A couple I haven't met yet. A couple I have. I'm gonna let you guys introduce yourself. Um, Show is titled "The Transition into Leadership." We have a few leaders on here, great leaders, and we want to get to know them a little bit. They have a couple other things going on as well, but we want to let them tell their stories and for you guys, the audience, to get to know them from a different aspect. So I'll let you guys introduce yourselves and tell us as much as you can about yourself. Starting with the in alphabetical order.
That's you, Kelly.
Oh, okay. Oops. No, that would be Jeffrey. Hey, wait a minute.
Oh, HIJ.
Yeah,
Jeffrey. Whoa.
it
Jeffrey,
that's
you're up.
a it's like we are being reminded of our basic alphabet. Hi, my name is Jeffrey. I'm actually from Georgia. I've started this industry like 2021,
I
right
cannot
after
hear anyone
COVID.
other than you.
Really? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. So back in 2021, when it was like post COVID, so I migrated from the Philippines. Thanks to healthcare, my family is here because my wife is a nurse. So that's the reason why. And when I started, it was also an opportunity like in the department I'm working at. So they were looking for people because after COVID, like there were a lot of need in any department in healthcare. So they were looking for staff because they've been figuring out like what's happening in SPD. Why is it that all of the sets and all the instruments that we needed is like this and like that? What is the traffic? How can we help? And then they said, oh, we needed some folks to work in SPD if you know some. And then my wife was like, yeah, I know somebody. She told me and volunteered me. So that's where I started my career in sterile processing. So by profession in the Philippines, I'm a university instructor, and I also worked in oil and gas. For some reason, I don't know how it translated and transitioned to that. But when I came to the United States, the big opportunity as was I mentioned during my interview in the HSPA that this is like a lavish opportunity that has opened up. So I think the rest is history. So now, currently, after like about 5 years, or not even 5 years, because May 10th is going to be my fifth year. So I am now in this new role. We have a new hospital that's coming up, opening up this coming August 2026. And I guess in the room of leaders, they were looking for who's going to be the next it, and then they pointed at me. So that's my short story, shortcut. So I now pass the ball to Juan.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Appreciate it. One. Oh, you know what? Hold on. One. Who's next? One. One. You on? One. Can you hear us? No. One. Can you hear us? All right. Let's move on to what's after J. K. Kelly. Let's go.
That would be me. Thank you, Denard. So I tell you a little bit about my history. So after a 15-year career in early childhood education, I then decided I wanted to go into healthcare. So I owned a childcare center at the time, licensed for 55 children, and I sold it and then went back to school to be a scrub tech. So I was working as a scrub tech, so working on the OR and all that fun stuff. Back then, we processed our own instruments, so I knew about sterile processing and I knew how to do it, but never really knew the why or the all the standards that are out there and or following that IFU, any of that kind of stuff. We just did what we were trained to do. And after a while, I mean, I was helping out, working in scheduling and billing too, because I didn't want to be scrubbed in all day. And they were going to have a real sterile processing department. And so the two ladies that worked the evenings approached me and said, "We want you to apply for that supervisor position." And I said, "For sterile processing?" And they're like, "Yeah." And I go, "I don't know sterile processing like that." And they go, "No, no, no, we'll teach you. We'll teach you." And I go, "I don't know, I don't know sterile processing." And they go, "No, we'll teach you all about Amy." And I said, "Who's Amy?" So I was like, okay. And they talked me into it. So Deb, who was one of the people who's now one of my best friends today. In fact, I just babysat her grandson on Friday. I was the first person to ever babysit outside of the family, so I'm very honored. But, to show how friendships can develop, today I always tell her, "Hey, I owe it all to you," because, I was like, "What? Sterile processing?" So that kind of began my sterile processing career. From there, I worked as, supervisor, manager, director, worked in peri-op services as the clinical and business analyst, and then also worked for Census, implementing CensusTrack at customers, and then also doing clinical assessments. So that's where I spent the majority of my career in healthcare, was with CensusTrack. That was for 8 years for doing that. So that tells you a little bit about me. I currently reside in Minnesota. So I just moved back here, and I'm all excited because it's in the 70s, but we're getting a snowstorm on Thursday. So can't get our hopes up too much.
Wow. One will
And
be
I'll
right
pass it
back.
now to, looks like, Tammy.
T.
Hi.
Tammy.
So Kelly and
Hold
I,
on. All right, Tammy.
so Kelly and I have known each other for a really long time. And it's so funny because when we first met each other, our careers almost mirror each other. Like Kelly, I was also a surgical tech at a community hospital where we also, for the most part, did our own instruments. And I was on the neuro team. So, and I really loved sterile processing because, when I went to tech school, we got to do like a 2-week rotation. And, you're first doing clinicals, and it's like you open these magic boxes and everything's beautiful and all your instruments are there. And, when I first started, I thought, well, gosh, we must get new instruments like every day. I'm thinking, no wonder surgery is so expensive. So then when I got to spend time down there, it shocked me on how much it took to get one set of instruments ready. And like Kelly said, this was before the days of following IFUs and having one source. I mean, I'm going to date myself a little bit, but we literally had carbon paper count sheets. And then we just folded up the count sheet and threw it in an instrument set, and everything got sterilized at 270, 430. And we IUSS'd everything, and we called it flash back then. But so it just, I did that for, went back and forth in the OR and sterile processing, and then did some intraoperative monitoring for a while. And then a position opened up as a supervisor in sterile processing. And much like Kelly, the team came to me and they were like, "Will you please do this?" And I said, "Look, I just don't know enough about it to lead a team. Like, I'm not comfortable." It would have been the first time I was in leadership. And I said, I feel like if somebody's going to lead a team, they should at least know a little bit about it. Right. So much had changed. So I was very apprehensive. And then the OR director was like, "Okay, here's the deal. Number one, I had the opinion of leadership that most people who have never been in leadership have, that they sit behind a desk and they don't listen to people and they make these decisions that adversely affect us, from turnover times, right? Like, you're not ever scrubbing this case. How can you tell me to have turnover times like this?" So I really wanted nothing to do with leadership at all. And the OR director made a deal with me that do it for 6 to 9 months. And if you hate it, you can go back to your old position, and it's no harm, no foul. So I did it. I fell in love with it. Ended up then being the perioperative business manager. So I had SPD, OR scheduling, transport, anesthesia techs, all of those things. So, and now I'm a system director, and I have 4 hospitals and 4 ambulatory surgery centers and 1 big, beautiful offsite. Yay.
Juan, can you hear us now?
I can.
All right. I think it's your turn unless you want William to go first.
Nope. Go ahead, Juan.
All right. Thank you. So, how did it all start? That's the question, right? I was having a problem with the audio. It all started early. I think I was a Cub Scout. If we think about leadership, but it was the Boy Scouts. But professionally, it actually started long time. I guess as soon as I came to the industry and I realized that to lead, I didn't need a title. I was working at a small community hospital in East Orange, and there was an opportunity to lead and to help transform that department. So I felt that I became a leader about maybe 5 or 6 years before a title was ever given to me. I was just, one of the guys working on the floor. But that later on, I became a supervisor and just kind of built my career for the last 35 years or so. I have worked in very large healthcare systems, and some academic medical centers. Now I lead operations for Ascension in the Texas market, where I oversee 14 hospitals, SPD, and operationally.
Wow. That's a lot. When do you get time to sleep? That's a lot. Nice to meet you, Juan. Last but not least, we have William.
Hey, thanks, Denard. I always tell people I started in sterile processing out of necessity. Right after high school, I was in college I was going to be a biology teacher because I wanted to work summers off. Went to school for like 6 months and decided that school wasn't for me, kind of quit and told my parents I quit. And they said, cool, you need to move out of the house. And had a buddy that was working as a phlebotomist in the hospital. He said, come down here. You can stay with me. I'll get you a job at the hospital. And, kind of started working in sterile processing right then. It was a small community hospital, but after I was there for about a year, it got bought by a larger academic facility. And, kind of my leadership grew in that position, whereas they didn't have lead techs or supervisors. They just had a manager over the department. And kind of as I spent my time there, I was like, all right, well, we need to have lead techs. The manager said, well, write the job description. All right. So I figured that out, wrote the job description for that. And then, I said, we probably need to have a supervisor a little bit later on. And she was like, well, write the job description for that too. So I wrote the job description for that. I had spent about 14 years there and thinking I was just moving up and I was going to be the manager at some point. And she told me that she was not going to retire anytime soon. So at that point, I knew that if I wanted to be a manager somewhere, I needed to move. So that's when I kind of moved on from there and took a job at another small community hospital. And that's kind of where I learned how to lead. I always tell people my first day when I walked in as the leader, I'm in a suit, tie, and I walk into the department and I go to my office and I sit down first thing in the morning and I was like, wow, this is really incredible. And then I hear 2 people in the department start fighting. Like loudly, like fighting, not really physical, but it sounded like it was getting there. And I said, I think I'm just going to shut my door anymore. I was like, wait a minute, I can't do that. Right. So obviously got kind of thrown to the fire right on my first day in leadership. So worked at, larger academic systems. I've worked at small community hospitals. Currently, I'm at a 450 bed standalone hospital here in Kansas City. I'm at NKC Health. We run 24 hours a day. We do around 80 cases a day. So we're pretty busy, and pretty much wouldn't change anything. You know, I've kind of held pretty much every job that in a sterile processing that there is, and, you know, just really enjoy the field.
Awesome. Thank you guys for coming on. Round of applause to y'all. So let's get into it. So I really want this program to be helpful to those persons and aspiring into leadership, because I think one of the issues we face today is a lot of folks don't want to get into leadership because they want to keep the job at the job and they don't want to take it home. There's a perception where if I get into sterile processing leadership, it's going to be a 24-hour day thing. I won't get any sleep. I won't get any rest. So I'm a good tech. I'll just stay here. So my question to you is, how do you balance being high level and also trying to be empathetic or be that person or that glue for the department in your areas, or your glue for your facility? How do you balance that? Being like, I need the production, I need this to be done, but I also have to understand persons have lives, or persons make mistakes, or this is there's a balance between the real world and what I want from the people that work with me and for me. Make sense? All right. So who wants to go first?
I can go first.
Okay.
So can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. Thank you. I had to log back out and log back in because I said I couldn't hear anyone. So, you know, one of the things I think of with, you know, when people ask me about going into leadership, and I think as a leader, you got to make sure you have the right people on your team. So when you come in as a new leader, you know, many times it can be a little challenging because you're going to make some changes, and that may need some people, but it's a matter of having the right people on your team. So that way you can leave and go home and know that things are going to operate smoothly. You know, you don't have to be there 24/7. Along with that then is having that faith and that trust in who you have as your leaders. I started a position one time as in leadership, and the person I was replacing said, you know, I come in every morning at 6 a.m. to make sure everything's ready for the next day cases. And my first thoughts were, I don't want to come in at 6 a.m. because, you know, knowing that meetings don't start until like 8. So if I have to be here till at least 4:30, like that's a long day every single day doing that. And, you know, my first thought was, well, that's the responsibility of your night supervisor. So he must not have the right people on his team. And it, you know, it took a while, took some turnover, but it's getting the right people on your team so that you can have that good work-life balance, and that you aren't, you know, waking up at night, checking your phone, looking to see if anybody was texting or there's any problems going on.
Interesting. Thank you for that. Yeah, so basically you're saying have your team in place to help support you, so that this won't be a 24-hour operation for you.
And you're 100% right, Kelly. But, you know, and you know as well as I do, like you said, there's some turnover. So when you are that leader and one, you have 14 hospitals, right? I think that my life is crazy having 4 and an offsite. You know, sterile processing, it is a 24/7 operation. So we don't, you know, there are going to be, to Kelly's point, there's going to be days where, yeah, you have to be there at 5 a.m. and you might not leave till 10 p.m. So, you know, a leader is also recognizing when you have that third shift supervisor, right, who maybe is really a little bit change adverse, right? And they're really stuck on the way they've always done it. And you're trying to blow up a process and, you know, be a change driver. Maybe you do have to come in and spend some time with them, maybe, you know, to see who the right people are, or, because everybody tells you, I don't know anyone out there. It's always, we don't have enough people on this shift, or, my shift gets stuck with all the pickup, if it's third shift, we have to clean up everything. So, it is hard when you first start at a new place, because you tend to burn yourself out, or I tend to burn myself out. And it's just recognizing once you start, it's easing that span of control into the supervisors and the lead techs, instead of, well, I'm the manager or I'm the system director, it all falls on me. Because at the end of the day, when your vice president of surgical services is calling you because tray defects are out of control, it is you that has to have that conversation. But as long as you can speak to why, and recognizing from your team, I say all the time, it was funny when I first got here, I was spending way too much time, and I was overextending myself, but just trying to get a feel for the system and how things were working. And HR actually said to me, hey, as a system director, we don't want you in here on third shift. You're making the team feel uncomfortable. You're making them feel like you don't trust them. Whoa. I was on a decon sync with them. You know what I mean? And I'm like everyone else on this call. I don't believe in titles. So I believe if I've had 5 people call out on third shift and we have 280 cases to support the next day, pretty sure I'm going to go in and put on some Degon boots and belly up to a sink.
Mhm.
But now here we are 4 years later, and it's, hey, the team doesn't feel like you come in on third shift. So I think for, leaders, it is, yes, you have to recognize yourself, that work-life balance, and kind of know the needs of your team, and also recognize that no matter how hard you try, you're not going to make everyone happy.
Right. And that's, you talk about having like the right people and everything, and having so that you can sleep at night. One of the supervisors at one of my offsites, she said, the director before you was always saying, come work at the main hospital, come work at the main hospital. She said, am I doing everything okay? Because you've never once asked me to come. And I said, are you kidding? How about aces in their places? I said, I don't have to worry about your site at all. Like, you're like, on my things to worry about, you're like the bottom of it, because you do such a phenomenal job. I'm keeping you there because I don't need to worry about that one, So it's having those right people.
Mm-hmm. Juan, William, Jeffrey.
Yeah, just to chime in, I think that's a standing dilemma for leaders. Like, I just wrote here my thoughts. Like, if you learn only on empathy, you will lose direction. But if you lean only on standards, then you will lose a lot of people. So it's basically learning how to hold both at the same time. So I think practical steps that based from the experience that has been privileged to extend to me was literally to flush out and come out with a specific, say, for example, a weekly projection of assignments of people, and then so that you will be able to roam around or move around schedules. It's also going to provide them an understanding of some sort of clarity, that when they come to work, this is the specific assignments and roles that they have. And then now, if ever that there will be outages, because for some reason you are trying to balance your leadership, and then the reality that staff have lives outside of works, and then basically you are still leading people, and you are also leading roles or specific assignments. So as a leader, it requires me a degree of accountability to balance this for both. I need to lead with empathy, but I need to manage also with clarity. And I think this is an opportunity to really have a beautiful conversation inside your offices, in the four corners of your office, and to be able to understand also the situation of your staff specifically.
That's an awesome answer.
Yeah, I think these are all just great answers. I think I kind of agree with everybody, right? Getting the right team in place is obviously important. understanding when you need to be at work and when you don't need to be at work, having a clear idea around that. I always say, like, if you're starting a new position, you're probably going to end up putting in more time. It's just how it goes. Most turnover in leadership aren't turnovers for good reason. So there's usually a problem that you're walking into most of the time. But just knowing that building a team to get you to a point where you have that work-life balance. I tell people in interviews all the time, that's my main concern for my staff, is their work-life balance. If you have something that comes up and you need something, you need to just come and talk, right? The biggest thing as a leader that we can do is communication with people. Keeping people informed, keeping us informed about situations, and then treating, obviously, everybody with empathy, right? And everybody's empathy is a little bit different, right? You're going to find people that want a lot of it, and you're going to find people that don't want any of it. I mean, it's just how human nature is. I think the biggest thing for being at work and trying to make sure you have time for yourself, and one of the first things I learned early on in my career is I need to block my schedule off so nobody can schedule at least once a day, like an hour, right?
Yeah.
Where if I need it, I take it. If I don't need it, I do something else. But some days you need it, or you just need to kind of sit there and decompress.
So I'll tell you, to this day, from 7 to 9 o'clock at night in the morning, my calendar reads no-fly zone. Going back to a book I read many years ago, and that's the time I use actually to do rounding and to connect with individuals. Like doing the management by walking around. That has yielded a lot of success for me, building relationships, both with the staff and with the teams that we serve. Another thing that's important, especially for incoming leaders, is building the infrastructure. Right, it's not all on them. Is developing the next generation of leaders to have building that succession plan and start early. I always joke because I start building a succession plan no matter where I go the day I start working, and that's the developing of the next generation. So I don't have as much on my plate, but at the same time, I am developing leaders and building the infrastructure. Many of the leaders that leave don't leave because of the work. They leave because inconsistency in workflow and inconsistency in systems, and the systems are the one failing them, or the lack of systems is what's failing them.
Okay, I don't have a bomb anymore. I would have dropped a bomb for that. That's good.
100% right. And, I saw Sean there's tons of great comments in there, but Sean Flynn had one that, is really important. Our job as leaders is to get our team members the tools they need to be successful. It's difficult to lead a team into success when you have one functioning washer and no cart washer that ever works, right? So
I like to say, do you have the toys to do your job? Because it sounds more fun than tools.
Right? That's what I say about capital budget. I'm like, it's new toy time.
Yep.
So guys, let me get that question was so well answered. So I was taking notes in my head. I'm like, oh yeah, that's true, that's right. I need to do that too. So a common question. So getting into leadership, and I'm in leadership myself. So I had some misconceptions about leadership before I came in. So and some of them I had to debunk, some of them I had to be like, well, it is what it is. I gotta go above and beyond. I gotta do what I gotta do to get the work done. So what is a common leadership myth you had to unlearn to be successful?
I can take that one first. That you are responsible for everything and everyone, and that it is your responsibility to fix everything and everyone. I felt like anytime processes weren't working, it was my manager's fault, or, that just because, like, as a frontline, as a surge tech, just because a leader didn't adopt your idea does not mean they weren't listening to you. So, and that's a big one. You know, I always tell our team, please come to me with solutions, right? Yes, I want to hear what's happening in the department and I want to hear where our opportunities are, but don't just barge in the office and say, hey, we've got a problem. You know, if you come to me and say, hey, every day at 4:45, we're bottlenecking at decon because XYZ, and I think this can fix it. And we work together with the team, and maybe your idea wasn't, you know, the perfect solution, but it was the catalyst to have that conversation. You shouldn't feel like you're unheard or that your leader doesn't respect your opinion because they didn't choose your idea. You know, maybe some small part of that idea, it could have been this much of it, but it created a huge improvement for the department. So for me, that was just because people weren't quote unquote taking everything I said verbatim and implementing it. And Tammy, you have the best ideas ever, doesn't mean I wasn't being heard. And I think, you know, that's one of my biggest struggles as a leader is making sure the team is feeling heard, is feeling valued, even in those times where I'm like, you know what, I would love to do that, but here's, you know, let's take a different route, or let's try this first. And, you know, and not being afraid of failure, right? Like everybody thinks that failure is such a negative thing. I've learned more from my failures than I have my successes.
I agree. Let me see if I could.
I love that.
That was a good one. So I can resonate also, like there are instances like from time to time you come out of your office and then you go to the floor and you go to decon, and then they will be like, you know how to do this? Like, how do you think I came to my position if I don't know how to do this? I can just tell you like stories about when we started, like, you know this line between preparation, when you wrap your items, you containerize them, and then you prepare them for the manifold for your sterilizer and going to sterile storage. I was the only one who did that. But now you are so spoiled because we have certain people who are assigned in these specific areas. I think that's the biggest myth right there, that will be like shocker for all of them. Like, these people doesn't know what they're doing, or they don't know our job because they're just in their office. But that's the reason why we have been given this privilege to lead, because in one of our opportunities on the floor when we were working, part of the grassroots, we were shining. So that's the reason why we got this opportunity to serve as leaders.
William?
Yeah. You know, for me, I would say that, you know, my first leadership job, when I was in the interview, the person that was interviewing said to me, he said, you know, you're going to have to be on call 168 hours a week. And I did the math real quick in my head, and I was like, well, that's every day, every hour. Right. I said, you know, I don't know that that's going to be plausible, right? Now, he was obviously just making a joke of it lightly, but, you know, it is true. As managers, our phones are on, right? If there's an emergency, we're going to get called. But I think teaching everybody that, hey, you know, we're going to call if there's an emergency. I always tell my team all the time, I would rather you call me than sit here for 7 hours struggling with something, right? You know, I think the biggest myth is, and I don't get calls a lot, right? My team is good. My team's, you know, is there. So I think the biggest myth is that like it's probably an 8-hour job, right? You look at it like if you're a tech, you go in, you work your 8 hours, you go home. But as a leader, there is a little bit more to it than that. You know, there may be 10-hour days, 12-hour days. There could be 6-hour days too. I'm just saying it's possible.
Right.
But I think for me, that was the biggest thing, is just trying to figure out and make that all work.
Wow, you guys have so like I am regretting I didn't meet y'all and have this show before, because this is this is an awesome show, and you guys have some great responses. So that's awesome. I don't know what I'll ask next though, but I was too busy listening. Anybody has any other take on that?
I think one of the best things for me as a new leader, when the one facility, my first job as the manager, that facility had a leadership development program that was out of this world. I mean, it was really, really unbelievable. And it was a small community hospital, like a 150 bed hospital, but their leadership development, they did meetings once a quarter, and every leader in the facility had to come to that meeting. You weren't allowed to have a cell phone. If your cell phone went off, you actually had to get up on stage and do the chicken dance. Right?
I love that.
Yeah. And trust me, you get a doctor's phone ringing and they get up on stage and do the chicken dance, they don't ever bring their phone back to the meeting. But like we just had speakers would come in and do presentations on leadership. That same leadership development committee sent me to the college to do the 7 habits of highly, who's that? Covey's 7 habits study, right, at a college. So finding a facility that has a good leadership development committee kind of can drive good leaders to become better.
I love that you had that, William. I read that same book and it was in our leadership development courses too. So yeah, that when I first got signed up for those, I was like, I was working for Advocate Healthcare. So shout out to them. We had to drive up to Chicago and sit in this big conference room. And I'm like, I'm a new manager, right? And I am so busy and there is so much stuff that we have to do. And I am not going to go sit up there and put puzzle pieces together. This is ridiculous. And 12 weeks later, I was like, oh my gosh, this was the best thing that ever happened to me.
That's cool. That's cool. I appreciate y'all telling these stories.
Meeting, your phone rings, your chicken dancing.
Right.
I remember going to the leadership meetings and seeing those persons that were in there for years, and I'm like, okay, new to, especially going into a new facility. I was like, okay, these people look like they've been here for 10, 20 years. Why did they call me to this meeting? You know what I mean? Like, I'm I'm looking around like, maybe in a couple months I should come here, but not right now. I got stuff to do. But I think those meetings kind of helped you bond, kind of helped you see what the company or facility, what the culture is, and what they're trying to get to in the future, and just trying to and in a way through osmosis, seeing exactly what their top leaders do and trying to follow that too. I think in hindsight, those were good meetings, and the first meeting was a little like, are they gonna remember my name? What should I do? Should I talk? Should I say something? So I can remember those meetings, and they were good team building exercises from my point of view.
I remember my first HSPA conference, and I was, again, new to sterile processing pretty much. And that surge tech that just sterilized everything at 270, 430, and like so utterly consumed with looking stupid. And what if I ask this question? Here you have all these wonderful resources and years of knowledge at your disposal. So thankfully I had, Arlene kind of came up and grabbed me by the arm and pulled me to the front row and plopped me down with a bunch of our, founding fathers of sterile processing, Dr. Wilder, and met all those folks. And it was like such a humbling experience that I learned it didn't really matter how stupid I was. And I mean, I'll tell you, I was not the brightest bulb on the Christmas tree. But I learned so much just from that, that hour of fellowship with that group, and just saying, hey, look, I can't figure this out. Like, I've tried XYZ and this is still happening. Like, I need help, guys. And the ideas that came out of people like William and I talked in Louisville for an hour and a half. And I think, more solutions came out of that hour and a half problem conversation than, any book I could have studied. So I think, as a leader, being humble and not being, I hate the term, but don't be afraid to look stupid, because you don't look stupid. There is no such thing as a stupid question. I know that's wildly cliche, but can you imagine if somebody would have been sitting in conference and never asked that question, right? Like, how do you think we got where we are? How do you think we got to testing washers? You know, it was because somebody asked a question that they were terrified to ask, and a group of people got together and said, hey, what if we do this?
I agree. Good point. I remember my first HSPA was my first year of being a tech. I got my ticket, bought my registration, got my flight. It was Kentucky. Nashville? Is it Nashville? I don't know. It was Kentucky. Where the Kentucky the W was? Where's that? Louisville, Kentucky.
Louisville.
So yeah, so that was a little. I believe it was Louisville, but I'm getting old. My memory's going. I told you at the beginning of this, my memory's going. But my first memorable one was Louisville, Kentucky.
Was that
I
2011?
Yes.
That was my first HSBA.
Oh, wow.
Okay, I didn't see you. Where were you?
Yeah.
Jeffrey's
yeah.
like, I just graduated. No, I'm kidding.
That is true.
That was the best one, I think, in my mind. That was so awesome. Went to the Muhammad Ali Museum at the time. I think it was last year. It was in Kentucky, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So yeah. So my first one was there. My last one was there. So it was a good experience. It changed the city changed a little bit, but it was kind of eye opening what was going on. I started a new job. My manager was there, looking at me like, "Why is this tech here too?" But it was a good experience. I met some folks. I kind of air hustled a little bit, and then when I came back to the department, I brought a lot of trinkets back, and a lot of stuff I heard I brought back, and I said, I heard this manager's talking about this thing is gonna happen soon. So I kind of looked a little smart at the time, but I think it's a good experience to get your foot in the door and learn new things. Even if you don't understand it initially, the second year or third year, or maybe reading the magazine, you might see some of those things that are talked about in the conferences and the AMI meetings come to fruition, and you'll be like, yeah, okay, I knew about this 2 years ago, and it's coming now. Let me try and help my manager get this department ready because I heard this is going to happen soon. So I think those are great experiences to have.
I always say there's nothing like your first HSBA conference.
Right.
Like it's like you walk in and it's just kind of mind blowing. When you first go to them.
And it's so interesting to hear, we all kind of have the same problem set, right? Like, and it's so cool to hear all the different solutions and all the different ideas, and just getting those people in the room and going, oh my gosh, yes. Like, I remember I can't remember what somebody called it, and I can't even remember who it was now, but it was, they had a team of, I want to say 320, right? And I'm like, how do you get to know 320 people? You know what I mean? Like, how do you do that? And they said, well, we have everybody fill out as soon as we hire them, or if they get promoted, like, how do you like to be celebrated? Or what's your favorite candy bar? Because obviously we can't, buy everybody a steak dinner if that's their favorite meal. But, we shouldn't go out and buy everybody Hershey bars either if somebody doesn't like Hershey bars. So I've taken that with me everywhere I went, and it's really successful because, you guys see on Facebook all the time, they're like, oh yeah, we had another pizza party today. Well, if you're Tammy Haycock and you get a pizza party, I'm on cloud 9. Like a pizza party or Taco Bell, Uber Eats, and I am a happy girl. So, it's a great way to get to know your team and just do, like, some people love those little fidget spinners or goofy little erasers. You think of it as juvenile, but in our field, it's so high stress all the time. Sometimes those juvenile little gifts really can make somebody's day.
Yep.
So true. So true.
I would
Good
say
point.
it's the little things that count, and
Right.
it's the little things that you can do. And I always like to use Thanksgiving as my time to tell my staff, show my appreciation. and let them notice how thankful I am for them. Because, you know, when you get into the holidays, you may have people that don't celebrate that holiday. And so I think of, you know, Thanksgiving as a time of being thankful. So
I love that, Kelly.
and don't forget your other people in your department. So even my EBS workers, you know, I would always give them a little something or just a simple card saying thank you. So
Our plan ops guys that come in alongside
Yep.
us at 2:00 in the morning to get the water back on. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, so I keep forgetting. Let me get into one more question. So what advice would you give someone who feels ready to lead and hasn't been given a title yet?
You know, one of the things I always work, you know, with staff and say, you know, what do you want to be when you grow up? So it's kind of that, hopefully, you know, your staff that want to become leaders, that want to going down that path of the leadership role. And I always feel like, you know, make sure they understand what all it is, because the days of just being a boss are gone. The days of, hey, they became the supervisor because they know everybody, they know everything, they know where everything goes, they know how to do everything, they've been here the longest. Those days are gone. And nowadays we're looking for people leaders. So it's that people leader. It's when you hear, you know, people lead because of their boss, not because of their job. We need to keep people. We need to minimize that turnover. And so make sure that whoever you are promoting, growing, developing into a leader, make sure they have those people leader skills, because that's where, I mean, I feel like that's where it's at. You can teach someone how to do every tray. You can teach someone what, you know, Dr. So-and-so likes when you're building his case card, but it's teaching those soft skills. It's, you know, can you build and can you create and build those soft skills, or is it a natural born leader, or someone that is also willing to learn, develop, and utilize those soft skills to be that successful people leader?
Absolutely. And it's, you know, you're right. Anybody can be a supervisor. You take somebody that's been here 20 years, right? And they've
Yep.
been here forever. They have all the, you know, facility knowledge. I always joke and say they know where all the bodies are buried, right? Like, so for you, you're new to the system and you're like, hey, this person has been keeping this place afloat for the last 30 years. They know everything. They're a huge asset. I'm going to promote them into a supervisor. And then you find out they can't be kind to people.
Yep.
And they can't drive people, or they're just doers and they're fixers and they're not going to help the team grow. They're just going to take care of it and just make sure that it gets done. So it's 5:00 in the morning and they're working miracles every single day and it gets done, but nobody's learning from it. Nobody's growing from it. And there's no change. Like, why do we want to start our day like that? For me, a leader, a supervisor, a lead tech is going to go some critical thinking skills and go, oh my gosh, I am so sick of my day starting like this every single day. What can we do to fix this day? So yeah, 100%. People shouldn't just lead because they have knowledge, or and just be humble, ask for help. And don't be afraid to get it. If you get into it and you don't like being a leader, don't feel like you failed. It's not for everybody. I mean, there's definitely been days where I've been like, oh boy, really wrong career path, even though, you know, I absolutely love what I do. But just, you know, so going into it, again, be humble, ask lots of questions, reach out to, I mean, we have the internet today. I didn't have LinkedIn that I could reach out to Williams and Jeffries and Kellys and Denards and, you know, and ask these questions, you know, and I love, like, to me, the biggest compliment one could ever get is when a random stranger reaches out to you on Facebook Messenger and says, hey, I'm a supervisor. I'm new to I'm a new supervisor. I'm really struggling with this. I've tried to talk to my manager. They're just not hearing me. this person's a problem. He's unsafe. Do you have any advice? That's freaking awesome, right? Like, so just any new leader or someone thinking going into leadership, just for me, just making sure that people are, that you're approachable and you're not walking into the department like, my name is Tammy and I am the system director and I know everything there is to know and you shall do what I say. You know, be approachable. Let them ask questions. Let them come to you with problems and solutions and all of those things.
I agree.
Like,
Just
I think
reflect. Yeah,
people
sorry.
really, oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I think people sometimes take things very personal too as leaders. So that if somebody from your team comes to you and says, hey, you know, blah, 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 you promoted so-and-so to supervisor and it's just really not working out, Jeffrey shouldn't go, well, you know, that person was the one that was qualified for the job. And that's, you know what I mean? Like, you try not to be offended by that. It's just someone coming to you. They've noticed a gap.
I was reflecting on it on a personal note. Like after my 6 months, now you're no longer probationary. So basically, like you have crossed that bridge. Like, okay, it's a safe zone. And then I was working in the night shift, but I said it's not everybody is built for night shift. So it's making me crazy. So I said, let me go to a different shift. But the moment that I decided to go to a different shift, for some reason, my bosses put a premium on me like, hey, do you want to lead? So I'm like, what do I have that they are offering me this lead position? So I was thinking like, in my opportunity on the floor, like working side by side with the grassroots, I said, I did the basic things because when you look at it, overanalyze it, these basic things are the most that are being, people will not follow it because they are basics. Over familiarity, like, overconfidence. Normally, when you try to analyze the problems in the department, these are the kinds of, character or attitude that will create an RCA at the end of the day. But when you do the basic things, like I said, yeah, do the basic things. Meaning you do the standards. And I think another element that I was looking into is do the right thing the first time. No shortcuts. With all of this, these two elements, I believe I have not yet asked my bosses yet. Okay, after this interview, I will ask them, why did you choose me to become the shift lead, and now you are pointing me as the it for the manager position. But for those who are thinking that leadership is hard, when you do these two things, I believe it will carry you so much that you don't need to spend in a certain career for 30 years, 3 decades, 4 decades, because when you do all of this, your leaders are not sleeping. They are looking, they are watching, and they are taking notes. And when that opportunity comes, they will call you, and then they will tell you, and they will give you that opportunity. But on the professional side, because I know for a fact that this is going to be my bread and butter from here on forward. So what I did was to prepare for it. So regardless of I was aiming for a position, I prepared for it. So I took all the necessary certifications under HSPA. I took Lean Six Sigma. I engaged myself with different aspects of opportunities working in the healthcare, making me understand what it means to work in healthcare. So I think preparations also has allowed me to become as to who I am today. But again, somebody out there has taken that not risk, but gave you that baton. Here, this is your opportunity to shine.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Wilma?
I mean, I completely agree. Like I was going to say, like most of the time, we all have workers that work for us that we know would make good leaders. We see those people, right? But also on top of that, I would say if you're interested and maybe you're new and you didn't get noticed yet, making sure that somebody knows that you're interested in that, right? Hey, I know we don't have any lead positions open right now, but down the line, if one comes open, I would be interested in that, right? And then get your bosses focus on you, so they know, like, all right, this person is definitely interested in that, and you may get more responsibility as you go into that role, right? And they're going to say, like, yes, they can handle this, they can do this. I want to put them into there. Just like Jeffrey said, if that's something you're interested in, getting those extra certifications are going to make people notice you just as quickly as well.
And so many facilities have leadership classes, but it's, you go to these classes once you become a leader.
Right.
I really, truly, truly feel that, hospitals, businesses in general, that they need to do more of a, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? And someone wants to go into leadership with the approval of their, supervisor, manager, director, or whatever it may be, that they get to then attend these classes. Because let me teach you how to be a leader. Let me teach you how to be a supervisor or a manager, so that you can become that, rather than, hey, I hired you for this, now let me teach you how to be it. And
Right.
I feel we're doing a disservice to people by not offering that. I think of my first role in a leadership role, so 25 years ago or so, in early childhood education, and thinking of, wow, I would have done this different, I would have done that different. Well, how about if I would have had the tools and could have learned that before I became that?
Right.
Right.
Instructing people before they're in the positions obviously is going to help them once they get into that position.
Right. Like William said, hey, come to your boss and walk the walk, right? Go to your manager, go to your lead tech and say, again, yeah, I recognize we don't have any of those positions open, but this is where I'd really like to go. And, somebody said in the comments earlier, spend time getting to know your staff. Know who wants to be leaders, right?
Right.
Because again, I may be investing a ton of time in Jeffrey. Jeffrey has no desire to be a supervisor, right? So here we are, we're setting Jeffrey up to be a supervisor, and William gives us 2 weeks. And I'm like, all right, Jeffrey, come on, put me in, coach. And Jeffrey's like, not it.
Right.
Right? So, I hear that all the time from, some lead tech and frontline people. I really wanted that lead position, but you gave it to so-and-so. Well, you're also on corrective action for attendance, right? So walk that walk, yes, life happens. We all have to call in. It happens to the best of us, but you have to show that you want it too. Like Denard said, his first HSPA conference, you heard him say it. I booked my registration. I booked my flight. I went to the conference. His facility didn't pay for him to go. He took that upon to grow himself. So
Right.
if you're looking to get into leadership, invest in yourself. Don't wait for someone to do it for you. Sharon Green Golden always said that too. Nobody else is going to care about you or should care about you as much as you do. So invest in yourself.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think also, let me piggyback on that. So, the tech who didn't get the position, and then that's one thing I see that's lacking in the industry or in healthcare in general, for those persons who are not in leadership to get that leadership training. It's not approved for you. You can't access it because you're not a leader.
Right.
So one thing I want to try to show those technicians, those super techs who think they do everything well, like, it's not just being able to know how to troubleshoot the washer or troubleshoot the sterilizer when it's down, or figure out how to troubleshoot, a printer when it's down, stuff like that. Leadership is a little more involved than that, and you have to know how to deal with people. I think that's the main thing. And some of those persons can't deal with people at all. You send them to do a task and they complete it so seamlessly, but ask them to direct someone else, it might be an issue. So I
Right.
think some of those lessons on how to be empathetic and lead people, and the soft skills, I don't think there's enough of those soft skills to help people understand. It's not just being able to wrap a tray nicely, clean and decon quickly, and put stuff in the sterilizer and have your documentation correctly. Yeah, that's all good and nice and well. But the soft skills in the industry, I think that's something that's not taught enough. All right. Anybody want to piggyback on that? I don't want to close it myself. So, guys, I'll give you guys one opportunity. It's been a good hour. We've been on here. I want to give you guys opportunity to sign out. Reintroduce yourself and talk about the big thing that's happening on the 1st, and encourage everybody to come out. All right. I will start the alphabetical order. Kelly, let's go.
All right, awesome. Thank you. So thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you everyone who participated in this. Look forward to seeing everybody at the HSPA conference. Hope everybody can attend. It's like we talked a little bit about it, and it's a great opportunity for education, networking, etc. Bring all your problems. Somebody will fix them.
Yes.
All right, and I'll pass it to Jeffrey.
I like that. Bring all your problems and somebody will fix it. Okay, I'll make sure to have one specific or extra luggage with me. I'll come to you, Miss Kelly. I think that's the beauty of this conversation, and you will have an opportunity to feel one another, and whoever you choose. Like, these are the best of the best currently that you can choose from. But it's an opportunity. Thank you, Denard, for setting this up. And we were talking offline earlier that it will take you like thousands of dollars so that you will have this opportunity to show yourself in this kind of platform. But you made it possible. But you guys who have not exercised yet your opportunity to choose your board and leaders for the coming HSPA, please, you have that link. It has been sent to you personally. So that's super special. And we will see you all in the conference. Maryland, Baltimore. Woo-hoo.
Ooh. Who's next? Tammy. T.
All right. And yes, thank you, Denard, for getting us all together. This is, as Jeffrey said, no matter who you vote for, exercise that right to vote. Let's make this our biggest voting turnout ever. You have excellent candidates. Not that we don't have excellent candidates every year, but you've really got people on the ballot this year that truly care about our industry. And not only do they care about our industry, they care about the people that are in it. And, they want to hear what you want from HSPA. It's again, what do you want for us? What do you want from us? What would you like us to do to help your life get better, to make our industry better? So you can't do that if you don't vote, right? And HSPA is a great opportunity to get out there. All your board members, future, past, present, are there. You have past presidents there. You have a ton of resources. So do what you can to get to conference. If you can't go every year, we also have great scholarships, but no matter what, it costs you $0 to vote outside of your membership fee. I got in trouble for saying that the other day. I said, it costs $0 to vote. They're like, well, you have to be a member to vote. Yes, you have to be a member to vote. So, but please take the minute and a half to get online, do some research for your candidates, and just get out there and vote.
Yeah, I would kind of piggyback on that and just say that's the important thing is what we want to see is we want to see the numbers high. We want people to have a choice in who is in those roles, right? Obviously any of the candidates are going to do a great job, but you may have someone that you align more with in your thoughts after reading the bios and watching the videos that we've done. So I think that's the important thing. Finding that email link can be difficult for some. I know some people had it go to their spam. So, if you have any questions, obviously you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I can send you a screenshot of what the email looks like. I say, but just get on there and go out and vote. And obviously, we're going to want you to vote the beard as well.
All right, guys, thank you so much. And you guys are nice folks. I'm sorry we haven't had. I think Tammy is the only person I've really met more than everybody else and had long conversations with. But because Tammy and I always end up at the same spots. So
I follow you around, Denard. That's why.
Yeah. So, but I'm looking forward to taking selfies with everyone here, including Juan for coming through, Cynthia, also Sarah Cruz and Sarah Vincent, and I can't remember the names of the Treasury candidates. Let me see if I could pull it up in 10 seconds or less. Those. It is Stacy MacArthur and Angela Melissa. So shout outs to them. And all the best of luck to everyone. But you guys are awesome folks. I'm glad to meet you guys, and hopefully we stay in touch. And probably have you guys on some other shows because I like your input and I feel it's very interesting the perspective you guys have. And I think we're elevating the field with the way we speak, the way we interact, our philosophies in the industry. So thank you guys so much for coming on, and we'll end the show. So guys,
Thanks, Denard.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
All right,
everyone.
bye.
See y'all.